and we're talking hearts. Those are not my favorite, but it is a special time of year where we take a minute to celebrate love and happiness, and maybe maybe that's not your jam and you want to celebrate the opposite. I know that's the thing right now, right? The anti-Valentine's. Whatever it is, we're still talking tools, wire, crystals, jewelry. So stay with me. Um, and while you're here with me, I wanted to just kind of go over some of the features on this platform. If you are with me on artbeats.com/live, on your screen, you should see a little tag. That is our shopping bag. That will help you see, if you click on that, that'll help you see all of the products that I'm going to be using in today's show. So you can just click, read about it, put it in your shopping cart, and just stay with me the whole time. I may get minimized, but then when you come back, I'm back to real size. You can see what I'm actually doing. So just a really, really super cool feature. Nice option. There's also hearts. Today's a perfect day to share some hearts. It is not Valentine's Day, but I was hopeful that by giving this information to you enough in advance, you could order some supplies and maybe make your own version of this design. So not quite Valentine's, but I will take the love, and I will really appreciate you sharing with me anything that you see that you're enjoying, or a tip or something that you like. It just helps me kind of stay on track and understand exactly what it is that's helpful to you. This is certainly a wonderful community and opportunity for us to be together. So also share your comments, just put stuff down in the chat, and feel free to talk between yourselves. This is a community. We really want to bring everybody together as best as we can in this format. And with that, if you want, please be sure to share this information, share that these shows are happening. We are live on a very regular basis at this stage. Becky, Julie, Sarah, and me, we're all here with you, sharing as much love for jewelry making and other things. We also are working on other things, which has been really fun to figure out what actually is resonating with you and what you want to see. So feel free, check out artbeats.com/live, look at the page, save some of them, add them to your calendar so you get that reminder and you don't miss us. But if you do miss us, we're still here. Just scroll down a little bit further and everything that we've recorded to date is still available. You can come back and watch it, especially like if you're shopping and you are buying something that goes with the show and you don't quite remember exactly what we covered. Just go back and rewatch it. Fast forward to the parts that you're interested in seeing and need a refresher on, or whatever it might be. It's all right here for you. Now, if you happen to be on Facebook or YouTube, we're really still happy to have you. I just can't see your comments. So I can't see your name. So if you want, and we want to interact a little more directly, please come on over to artbeats.com/live. Or if you're staying on Facebook, you can still shop. We've been trying out this new option where if you see the code at the top in a black box, you can put that in your message and then we'll send you a link and then you can shop that way. So it is getting a little bit easier to shop directly from Facebook. At least we've been understanding that it's working. But if you're on Facebook or YouTube, we're really still happy to have you. It is fine. You have to see us where you can see us from and whatever's working for you. But then please feel free to share that link with your friends. Let's help grow this community. It's a wonderful place to be. I so enjoy being here with each of you on a very regular basis at this point. I'm really so honored to be a part of all that Art Beats is doing and sharing with you my love for making things. So with that all said, I believe I've covered everything we're supposed to, just so I can make sure that everybody's got all of the information they need so we can dive in and I could get lost in the jewelry making, because that's what kind of happens for me. I really do get lost in the making. So today, as I mentioned, we're talking hearts and wire and tools. So this was a design that I put together. It's a little funky. It's a little different. As I mentioned, I'm not really a huge heart person, but if you give me hearts and you let me wear something that's a little bit different, a little stylized, not so traditional, I'm okay with that. And then we'll also make a smaller version and make a pair of earrings. So I think that'll be fun. Let's get to it. I'm gonna just maneuver the camera so that I can point you down. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so here we are. This is not very much to look at, but being a tool person, I love my tools. So I think they're beautiful. So we're just working with a hammer, a steel bench block. I have my, one of my favorite Wyatt White tools from Beadalon, the wire straightener. I keep this handy. I literally have three of them right behind me, so I just pull it out. It's for that just in case. I've got a good pair of cutters. I love these cutters. Some larger bail making pliers. I've got the multi-step wire forming tool also. And then my trio, my standard, like literally, like even when I travel, I take them with me. They're always together, those three. I've got a ruler just in case. And we're going to work with something a little bit heavier, which I hope doesn't concern anybody. I love a little bit more chunky, funky, larger style jewelry. This is 16 gauge wire and it's copper, so it still moves fairly easily. So don't be intimidated if this gauge is a little bit larger than what you're familiar with. Stay with me. Okay, so 16 gauge, we got 16, 18, 20, and 22 gauge we're working with today. So where are we going? We are going somewhere like this. I know. Thank you. Thank you for the love. I know. Isn't it just so fun? Thank you. I love these prestige crystals. There's just nothing like them. And again, this time of year, I'll give in. I'll use the hearts. They are so pretty, and these are just so I don't know, the colors just striking. Obviously the facets are precision like no other, and it just makes the design. And I think the design itself is pretty fun. Now, what I think is a little incongruent is obviously the shape of my heart is very stylized in comparison to the traditional heart shape here. And that may not be what you want to do. And that's totally fine. This shape is really up to you. I like I said, I like things a little bit different, but you can make this shape any way you want. We're doing a lot of work by hand. We'll have tools that'll help us, but you really don't have to make this shape the way I made the shape. But I'll walk you through how I did it so that you understand the reasons behind some of the parts, and then you can do whatever you like. And the other piece I believe that is incongruent is the fact that I hammered it, and I've got this kind of more like a texture. I'll just say it like that. It's a texture. It's a little unrefined, where you have the really beautiful precision of the crystals. So they don't really go together. So again, you could totally skip the hammering. I like to do that. What I also love about hammering is it makes the wire stiffer and gives me some lack of flexibility. It makes it so it doesn't bend out of shape so easily when I'm wearing the design. So for the sake of economizing, I know we tried to figure out like what's a good length, and I literally here, I'm going to be honest. I made quite a few samples before I settled on what I was really going for. And by then I also had a sense of how much wire that I want to cut. But for this design, you also could just work right off the spool. But I'm going to cut just about, that's why I keep a ruler handy, but you can see I'm not even barely using it. I'm just going to cut, it's just about, oops, I'm going to go this way. It's about 14 inches. It doesn't need to be exact. You need a little bit of extra, so don't mind the waste. And from this 14 gauge, and again, I'm also really not worried right now about my ends because they're going to be cut again anyway, but I did make sure I cut my flat side just because it's habit. And if you stick around long enough with me, you understand what I'm trying to say without saying it right now. But flush cut, you always want to have a flush cut on your finished end so that when you wear something, or if you're making designs for somebody to wear, you don't have that that end that has all the sharp edges on it. I'm just going to move some of these things out of my way. Okay, so part of this design, when I was thinking it through, and if I showed you some of the earlier versions, you'll see I didn't think it through, but you need a place for it to hang. If you want to suspend it like a pendant or even as an earring, you need a place to put something through it, to put a cord through or a cable through or chain through. So I positioned the bail, I guess you can say, near the center of this first half of the heart. And I'm not going to work quite on center, but somewhat nearer to the center. I know it's hard when I'm working with something so long. So just about halfway, I'm going to form a loop. And this loop will be what I use at the top to hang my design from. Now the next loop, again, when I look back at the original, this was just a straight, like a V. And I really then said, no, I want to put a heart in the middle. So the next iteration, I wanted to land the center of the heart. If you were to hold it, the center of the heart, I wanted there to be a loop so I could take advantage of some of this negative space and put something in it. You could totally leave it and just not have anything there. Again, totally up to you. This is just, you know, and when I get to the earrings, when you make a pair of earrings, I didn't put a heart in the center. You know, this is a little bit smaller, so I did not make a loop in the center. So totally up to you. Okay, so what I do from here, and really a lot of this is going to be shaped from by hand, but I do use these larger pliers. Let's see if I go like this. I do use these larger pliers to just give me a head start. So there you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, that's kind of the first half of my heart. And then this will be the swoop down the side. And because this is copper, it does really yield to my hands. And I will say my hands are not as strong as they used to be. This is, you know, when I was working wire every day, my hands were so strong, either by age or just lack of exercise of my hands. I don't have the strength, but I am able to move this really, really easily. So hopefully that works well for you. All right, and then from here, I will form the loop for the center. And you can use whichever pliers you like. What I need to do, so here I made the loop so it's on the outside, you know, and out above the design. Here I need to make the loop on the inside. So I'm just going to take that wire, wrap it around like so. And then this guy, again, you can use the pliers. This one I would then use the smaller side. And even if you're using your hands to form some of the shape, having this, you know, this box joint really gives you so much control over what it is you're trying to do. Use the tool to then hold the wire for you, so you are putting less strain on your joints and your hands. Now my goal is to have this is where it gets kind of fun and funky. You might have to start playing with the shape, the design, how you did everything. We're going to just keep going, but you'll get the gist of what we're trying to accomplish here. What I'm thinking now is that I probably have a little too much there. That's a little better. Because what needs to happen, this needs to be at the top, and then this needs to be in a position where there's an opening enough for the heart to hang down. And you need enough wire to be able to do the wrap All of these things have to be factored in, which is what made it so that I had to do so many different versions of this heart before I got it. But these are the general guidelines of how to do this, kind of like doodling, right? Okay, so here, what I'm going to do, because this will be where I'm going to wrap, like a wrap loop, I'm going to form that 90-degree, and here I'm going to form in the other direction that 90 degrees. So I've got the shorter length coming down straight and the longer length coming out also straight. And then I like to use my chain nose pliers here, come in and hold. This is a little tricky, especially with it being heavier gauge wire. You want to hold this wire in the crook of where that 90-degree bend is. It's not life altering if you don't get it, but that is your goal. And I have lotion on, so please forgive me. Okay, so now I'm going to just pivot. And I will use my tools. Again, this is heavier gauge, so I don't recommend using your hands to do the wrapping if you want it to be neat. I'm pulling pretty tightly so I get that wire wrapped around the other wire. It is not, this is probably the hardest part, and maybe the hardest on your hand. You can see how hard I'm pulling. That has nothing to do with lotion. That is just strength and slipping. Okay. And what I want to do is just tweak that just a little. For as much as I don't like perfection, sometimes my wraps I get a little obsessive about. There we go. Okay. There we are. Now the nice part is that you can still manipulate the wire from here and make it into the shape that you really would like it to be. Like I said, I'm just going to leave it. You guys play with this, make it what you want. I love it. I am very happy to just leave it the way it is. I say that as I continue to fuss. That's just how it is, right? I feel like I never sit still. I'm always fussing, fixing, tweaking. And I could feel that little end, so I'm just going to make sure it's curved around the wire so I'm not having anything sharp. Oh, look, yeah, I actually cut myself. It's a little sharp. So another thing you can do, if you find that you have an end that's sharp like that, you just reach over here. If you have like a file, either files or a sanding block. I have sanding blocks clearly always right at the ready. And you just need to have something fine enough, thin enough to get in there, and a fine enough grit that it doesn't really change your wire there. It just kind of deburrs that end. Okay. Alrighty. Now what we'll do, I want to figure out, how to make this end. And you can make this spiral as large as you want or as teeny tiny as you want. I didn't care for this one. I tried to, anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't like how that one turned out, but maybe you like that one, so I'll share that with you. It's really whatever you want. This is where I landed. And what I'm trying to do here is make sure when I create this spiral, I have a little bit of room to then be able to hang my charms from. So totally your call. I'm going to go with about 1.5 inches. And you saw I had heavier duty cutters. It is not a bad idea. I mean, I have plenty of heavy duty cutters. This is 18 gauge, so you can still use the cutters that I use on a regular basis. It says right on here, max cut is 1.6 millimeter copper wire. So we're still fine, but having a pair of heavy duty cutters on hand is not a bad idea. And it does help save your finer cutting pliers, finer wire cutting pliers for the finer cuts. All right, so now I will take my round nose. Now I do have that flush edge. I didn't share that with you, but when I cut, I made sure I had that flush end. And I'm going to just rotate away. I always suggest rotating away. It may not feel as comfortable for you, but when you're doing this on a regular basis, rotating away from your body is more ergonomic than if you were to like come toward you. Do you see how contorted my wrist is? And I could tell you it actually is not comfortable, where this is much more natural. So always move your design in a way that makes it so your hand is rotating away from you whenever possible. I know sometimes we get ourselves into situations where, you know, you just have to deal with it. And just when you're doing it on a regular basis and it's, you know, something you're doing frequently, you'll be glad to know that little bit. All right. And now this, so I cut the wire, I would say it was about 1.5 inches. Let's see, what do I want to do? I'm going to actually just pivot it. So I have a little bit of, oh, let's see. Nope. Little out of alignment. So again, we're trying to accomplish somewhat of a straight line, because this is going to be where my charms are going to hang. This is how I'm going to hang the pendant. And then I need a heart to hang here. And you can see I keep manipulating this. I can't just let it be. It is just the nature of, it's like when you make bread or dough, you want to keep working it, but at some point, like, enough's enough. Like, leave it alone. Just stop. And once I hammer this, that's it. We're toast. You don't want to do anything more to this wire than what you already have. So I'm going to say this probably will become not necessarily my finished design. I'll be glad I have one that's perfect. But hopefully you guys are laughing and maybe empathizing, but also maybe relieved to know that even somebody who's been working with wire for over 20 years some days doesn't quite nail it. And that to me is more like a B. So hey, there you go. Maybe you want to make letters out of these instead of the heart. But I'm gonna just give it one last try. Give it a little bit of a little finesse. And we'll just leave it at that. How about that? I will for sure just leave it at that. All right, now I'm bringing in the big guns. So here's my story. I've got a rubber block. There are different bench blocks out there. I recommend one that is either just the steel bench block, but then yet you have a rubber block or some sort of pad underneath, or that you get the steel bench block with the wood underneath. Just something that'll help receive the blows of your hammer. And I am working on a very solid countertop. This is really like probably 1.5 inches thick, maybe 1.25 inches of oak. I think it's oak. But then it's suspended over bookcases. Like, that's my workspace. So it's fairly grounded, and I'm on a carpeted surface. But I know when I'm working in a place where I'm on a folding table, or we're teaching in a workshop, and the situation is less than ideal, and it's not something you've been able to really have control over. So all of this setup is really helpful in keeping the wire from bouncing around. It helps my hammer strikes be more intentional. It gives me greater results sooner than later. So there's just things to think about as you, if these are newer tools for you and you need to make some decisions on what to get and why. That's some of my thought process and how I make my decisions. Okay, so when you're working with a hammer, it's very important to hold back further. It gives you more power. The fulcrum comes to mind. I am not a physics person. I don't think I even got to a point in school where I needed to take physics, but you really want to have your hand back as far as possible on the handle to give yourself the best amount of leverage and force. And you also are doing yourself a favor, again, for ergonomics. So try to remember that. I know we're eventually I'll find myself creeping up. That's really not that's not what you want to do. So I'm just going to hammer. I'm not going to hammer and talk at the same time. So here's another thing. Because I have formed these loops, if you're hammering and you hammer the loops, you will, in short time, you will break the wire. The wire will just stress so much because of the overlap, and it's not going to be good. So don't do it. I will hammer it a little bit. But that's it. I'm not going to go anymore. Honestly, it really is not, it's not a good thing to do for the sake of your design. And again, especially here, oh my gosh, like that would be a hot mess if I started hammering that. I've done it. Just not, it also doesn't look very good. See, look, my hand's already creeping up. Move it back. Also, as you get to know your tools, and this, I'm surprised I haven't done it, but you can also modify the face. I know it sounds counterintuitive. You buy this beautifully machined face hammer, but these edges are very machined. They're not really made for using them the way we're using them. They are machined. So you can modify that and make it a little more rounded. All right, and now there. And I'll look at the back and see if there aren't any areas where my hammer's blows on the other side didn't take, but it looks pretty good. And I love how it catches the light, but you can see that those sharp edges, those sharp angular lines, that's too many adjectives. That's from the edge of the hammer. So you may say like, okay, that did the job, but maybe you like this side better. And the benefit of that is this side was formed against the steel, which is a smooth surface. So it's going to replicate and mirror whatever surface you have it on, where this is taking the direct blows from the surface that you use to hammer. So that's why those edges created those marks. I don't mind them. I think it makes it very handmade. All right. Stop admiring the work, but hopefully that helps give you some idea of hammering and how it all works and some of the things to look out for. Now, I will add to that, you do not want to over hammer. You can go so far. The thicker the gauge, the more room you have to do this type of work, but you're work hardening the metal. You are aligning those molecules and you're getting everybody in order, but at some point they're going to be like, yeah, dude, I'm out. And the wire's just going to give. It's not going to hang around forever and let you abuse it. So keep that in mind. It's eventually not going to work. Okay. So from here, what do we have next? We're going to make some jump rings. Here we're just going to use some finer gauge wire to do a wrap loop. And here we're just making some jump rings. You can use manufactured jump rings, pre-made, but I thought it would be fun. And some of it is also, if you're working, say you're working with a color wire and you want all of the colors to match. What if you chose red wire and you want all of the wire to be red? Well, then you might want to be able to make your own jump rings. So this is 20 gauge. The other thing you want to think about is you may have purchased jump rings, but what you need are jump rings that are the right diameter and the right gauge to fit through the pendant. And this goes for anything, not just because it's crystal. This goes for anything. It's probably geometry at this point. You need the curve of the wire to be able to pass through the opening on the pendant, curving enough. And then the other side of that is you don't want it so big that if like say you needed to have this curve be this diameter, you don't want it to be so big that the jump ring doesn't have any chance for success. So when I'm working with jump rings, making jump rings, I use the heaviest gauge wire possible for fitting through the opening of the pendant or whatever, the bead. And I use the smallest diameter possible. That will give you the greatest success for your jump rings. And that's where these pliers come in for me. You can make a set of jump rings in no time. All right, so let's get to it. I'm just going to start, and I like to make sure when I'm spiraling, I've got the cut end moving away from me. Sometimes I do it backwards and then it's going to grow out. But if you have the cut end coming toward you, you're going to be very limited in how far you can go. Once we get past that cut end, you could really just shoot, shoot, shoot. Come on. There we go. Oh, sorry. Get so caught up on what I'm doing, making sure I'm doing it right and that it's working. But you could just keep on going and you get that really nice tight spiral or coil. And then you've got a beautiful span of jump rings to cut apart. They're all the same size, all the same wire. Cut that free. And then to cut them into jump rings, if you haven't done that before, this is where the cut end really comes into play. So you want to cut that first side again so that the cut end, the flat cut end is what stays and the other side is what goes. Then you turn the cutters and line it up with that first cut. And there you have a jump ring. And it's the perfect diameter for these hearts. I think these are the 10mm hearts. Now, because I cut the wire and the flush end stayed with the jump ring, I now have a cut end I need to trim away. So just take those cutters, trim away just a little. And what's important here is not to cut through that second ring while you're working, if you can help it. And that'll just keep your jump rings clean and happy jump rings. Cut away. Again, you see I'm keeping my finger over all the cut ends so that nothing's flying. Cut end, cut away, turn, jump ring. Okay, so you guys get the idea of that. And then let's just, while we're here, I think I need 2 more. Take a jump ring. If you haven't worked with jump rings before, keeping the opening at the top at 12 o'clock, I position a pair of pliers at, this looks like 1 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock, and then I take the other set and I position it so that it is at 10 or 11 o'clock. And I'll rotate away. You can rotate either toward you or away from you. And if you're trying to just give your jump rings a little bit of spring, one, you can hammer it, and you could hammer these with a rawhide mallet so that they have a little bit of surface tension. No, that's not the right word. Hardness. We'll just leave it simple. But this also gives them some spring, so they're going to stay closed better. And I'll feed that through the opening of the pendant. You can see it hangs. It has a little bit of room for movement, so it's not too snug. Especially with crystals or glass, if you make a jump ring or use a jump ring where there's no play in the actual component, you run the risk of, if it were to get caught on something or snag on something, it could break. The glass is at some point going to break. The metal will likely pull apart, and then you may also risk having this break. So just something to keep in mind. That is part of what is determined when I make these designs. I really work through some of those concepts and parameters. They're boundaries, right? They give you an idea of how things work and where you have some latitude to make some changes or some nuances. Because you may not want to make this design, but knowing how I made it and why I made certain choices will hopefully empower you to then make your own choice. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut away a piece of 20. What did I use here? 20 gauge. All right, nope, that was 22. 20 gauge. So let me cut a piece of 20 gauge. This is very long. And we will just make a quick loop. I'll open that up. My goal here, oops, I don't know if I did that right. My goal here is to string on one of the hearts. So the loop, the opening, again, the opening has to be sized just right. So I may have made it a little too small. Let's see. Okay, I think I made it a little too small. So this, enter in one of my favoriteest tools, super handy, the wire straightener. Now, unfortunately, my hands with lotion on them make this a little bit harder to work, but this guy just wraps around the wire, and then you just pull the wire through. And I'm just going to grab this with a pair of pliers so I can, a little bit of help. And you just pull it through, and it helps get you right back where you were. Start over. Love this tool. Love it, love it, love it. All right, so I'm going to make a bigger loop. Open up. Thread on that heart. There we go. Close that guy up. Do a quick little wrap. Now here, you want to be as close as you can to that little crossroads, but you want to be careful you don't pull too hard or hurt the crystal, because again, it will break and then you'll be sad. I would be sad. All right, we're gonna trim that guy. Make another quick loop. Now I know my tail is going to be too long for this to work very well to get into this guy here. But my goal is to get the heart onto that loop. Get my pliers into that I call it a crossroads, you know what I mean? It's where the two wires overlap. Let me open that up just a little. All right. There's that. Okay, now what I need to do is make a choice. And the only way I'm going to be able to wrap this is I'm going to have to cut away some of that 20 gauge wire. And that's fine. The problem is you don't want to cut it so short to be able to make it work. So I'm going to just still make this a little bit harder on myself. But what I'm going to do is pull the wire. I'm going to bend it in a very unattractive way. Wrap that around. Wrap that around till the two wires meet. So you can see I don't normally get so close to the wire. I'm usually out on the end and get a nice neat wrap, but you know, got to work with what constraints we have, and we've created this problem ourselves, so just got to work around it. Get in there, flush cut, cover the wire before it comes away. Tuck that end in, and you've got a nice wrap loop. And again, oops, wrong way. There we are. And then from here, just string up using jump rings. Just create a chain of jump rings and attach the hearts to that drop. And then for this pendant, what I did is I just made a string of jump rings using the larger size of this. So it's just now repeating all the things we did. Again, this is one of the larger barrels on here. You have the bail making pliers as well. And this size, the smaller size, it's a little bit big for this size wire and the goal, but you could try that. And then for the earrings, it is exactly the same thing, just a little simpler. We don't have that extra loop here. Everything is made the same exact way. I just have one little sweet heart at the bottom. And then the ear wires I made using 22 gauge. Yeah, I think this is 22 gauge. I like 21 gauge, but 22 gauge works, and I tried these on and it fits just fine. And I used this size on the bail making pliers to form that loop. Made a simple loop here, swirled it around, trimmed it, and then you could use those ear nuts at the bottom once you put these on, just to kind of hold it in place. And so there's that. All right, I'm gonna flip the camera around and we'll close out our show. All right, so here we are. As I said, we have our heart, and now you can add a chain or a cord, a finished cord, and have it be any length that you want. So this hangs where you'd like. You could even make it as a choker, and then it's just a beautiful statement piece. And then, as I said, these 22 gauge ear wires that I made really are comfortable. And I did tap them a little bit with the hammer, so I have a little bit of strength in the wire, so it's not too flexible that when I put it on, I undo the shape. Turn a little bit so you can see. And that's it. So now we have a design for Valentine's Day, but you can wear these anytime, any special occasion. You can take this design and make it into whatever shape you want. It does not have to be hearts, but it is a special time and a time to be celebrating love and happiness, friendship. Make these for your girlfriends. The sky's the limit. How many times do we say that? Like, really, there are no boundaries. There is really no reason for you to curtail your making. You know, make and share and give and love. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for supporting all of us, Becky, Julie, Sarah, me. If you have ideas of things that you'd like to learn, please let us know. Share your comments with us to know what it is we should cover that would help you in your jewelry making journey. Share the show, bring your friends. We would love to expand our group and have just more love and more friendship here with all of us. Don't forget to close out your cart. There's no guarantee on what's going to be available as this goes live and people are being inspired to make different things. I always encourage you to close out your cart at the end. But certainly look at, there's other colors. Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you, there's other colors of the hearts. So definitely look for the hearts, the 10 millimeter size. Maybe red isn't your thing. There are so many pretty colors. So the 10, I believe the 10 millimeter heart has other colors that are really so beautiful. What else? We have all the shows will be in the library, so come back, revisit the shows, revisit this one. You know where to find me on social, or try to find me on social if you have any questions, things that you want to make sure that I can help you with, questions that you might have, suggestions that you might have. We love to hear from you. And if you make something, we want to see it. Please, please, please share it at Art Beads. On their Facebook page or their Instagram page, tag us. We want to see what you're making. And then if we are able to see what you're making, we would love to feature you on the show. So thank you again. I appreciate you being here with me today. It's been my pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again next Monday, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And what are we covering? We're going to be featuring a special designer blend. That is next up for me, so I'll be working on some ideas for that. Wait till you see. This is one of those special exclusive designer blends, so I can't wait to work with that and then share it with you and inspire your next creation.